podcasting. This is Martin Brossman and
Nataliia Berezhna.
I am so excited to talk to you about podcasting. I got to meet you in one of my classes, and you were a star participant. And it was our Charles Register in my class on video and photography.
Hello, this is Martin Brossman and
Charles Register.
And we just taught our video for small business.
The light in there, you see us?
It's a splitter that lets you interview two people.
So I really like also to see teamwork, how the two of you were changing roles, just also to show how you should target the camera. This is what they use when they speak. Quite often I see people talking before the camera and I wonder how they can speak without looking at their notes. And
That's so you got to figure out on the phone where the camera is. Look forward to working with you in the future. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
And when I heard that you were working more on podcasting and getting into it more and more, I was so excited to do a show talking about what is podcasting. And I just want to start by saying, to me, podcasting is audio only. The video and stuff are others. And a lot of people are getting confused. It's blurring the lines. But I grew up with podcasting as an audio feed that's streaming, so you can listen to it later, you can download it, you can listen to it while you're driving or bicycling, and that's the key. What about you?
Well, it all depends upon the purpose you put for this podcast and also whether different marketing channels you have and how do you employ. When you think about people and the audience, you think that that theory about this, some people are more visual, some people are more audio, some people want to touch things and feel them, right? So if you decide to choose an audio version, it's easier from the point of perspective of a producer. It's less to edit. If you have a video version and audio version, it expands your marketing channels and you can affect different people. People can watch you. They can just sit back, relax, and just watch you. Or indeed, like it could be only audio. You need to think about the purpose and who is going to look at it or listen to this or watch it. I just know for sure that whatever takes 20 minutes of recording takes about, multiply by 3, about 60 minutes to 90 minutes to edit this. So that just keep in mind.
That's a great point. And the piece of it is it's fine to do a video interview like we're doing over Zoom and then convert it to a podcast. The way I explain it to people doing it is if you do video and you're going to podcast, imagine part of your audience is blind or visually impaired, and the key of it is that's your job as the interview. If someone shows something, you describe it and make it so they'll also work on audio. And that's one of the little subtleties we've woven into the training over the years. And I think it's an important point.
Yeah, I would agree on that. And as a host of the podcast, if you really want to show something to your audience and you're doing video and then you have an audio version, it's always good to provide a description of that. For example, you can say something like, okay, now in my hands, I'm holding this, let's say we're talking about some recycling, right? And some of the programs, how to save. So I'm holding in my hands this little plastic container that you can bring with you, or like metal container, and give people so that can give you food rather than the plastic one. Okay. So they just provide a description. And if you're doing this on video, it's always good not just to show it on camera, but hold it several seconds so people can look at it. Then you can, like on TV, right? When you show these TV shows, when they sell things, also, when you provide something and bring with you, just make sure that you give enough time for people to imagine it or see it.
And one of the points you brought up is what's your ultimate goal? If you want to do video and audio, then you want to think about staging it. And that's why I wanted us to have different settings. Yours is in your office. Mine is in my home podcast studio and video studio. And I wanted to show, on audio, there's no difference. I mean, yours looks great. And actually, yours could be one because it could be at work. So it's all the messaging, the concept, what you want to communicate is so important. And right now, I sometimes I'll work with my camera here. At this moment, I'm just using my laptop and the built-in camera, but I am using a separate microphone to have a little bit of quality on it.
Yeah, before finalizing my options for camera and light, so indeed, it depends whether you have a studio setup when you can bring your professional camera equipment, put the lights on, put this fancy, I love your soundboard behind you. It looks, I was dreaming of that one, but now it just, when you have a good microphone, it can do the same thing for you. In any event, indeed, it is that it depends where you're going to be, whether it's your home studio. I'm now working from home, so I set up like little desk here, and it's about also when you're on video, you think about your background, and with Zoom, for example, you can put any context. You can replace your Zoom background and you can have people as if, I mean, talking from different perspectives. But indeed, there are 3 key points. It's about the light, it's about the sound, and it's about the video that you need to make. And I also tested different video equipment I have on my personal YouTube channel. And I was also showing, okay, this is what gives you like laptop camera. It's a bit blurry. And this is what gives you like one side of camera that I had. And my choice was Logitech, the HD 1080. It's a tiny small camera, but it does really great things. And it adjusts automatically. Then it adjusts for natural light. You can manually adjust it. And then if you record on Zoom, that platform also helps you because they have built-in features for if automatic adjustment for low light, or you can manually adjust the light. The same as they've got some filters for pop-up. If you have, let's say, I mean, it's a cloudy day today, right? So you can just put some of the features in Zoom, or you can add more light. And another thing, like it's always good to, for the camera, sometimes people forget, they just take a little napkin and just clean up the glass of the camera, and then crystallize it.
Right, you got it. That's excellent. Well, the next thing I want to go to is the fundamentals of podcasting. What's involved to get going? Because you and I have looked at many different methods, and in my fundamental podcasting class, the goal is the absolute minimum hardware and software to edit and get started. So I'll let you start. What's the beginning? Where do we begin?
Yeah. Thank you for that. And it's a bit, I mean, it all starts with an idea, right? I want to do podcasting. And then you think about, okay, then you start looking about how people do podcasts. And then you find lots of information on YouTube, on different channels, and lots of different courses ranging from you pay $0, you pay like $700 or $1,000 for the course. And then it's a bit overwhelming that at one point you just freeze and you're like, okay, I don't think I'm going to do it. I don't think I can handle it. But the truth is, really, it all starts with the basic question, why you want to do podcasts, how often you want to be that podcast to be on. And it's like starting your business. You have to be committed because podcast is not like one-time thing. If you say, okay, I want to do it, let's say once a month, or I want to do it twice a month, then you should be on that goal because that's how your audience grows. And then you think about the conceptual stage, the strategic sort of, okay, who are the people I'm going to talk? What is the name of my podcast? What is the description? Who will be my guests? Will it be my solo podcast? I will be the only one talking, or I will need to bring some guests. And who will these people be? Will they be from my network? Will they be someone I know? Or maybe my podcast will be so popular that people will start knocking on my door and say, hey, let's do an interview. I'd like you to interview me. So it all depends, because when you do solo, you don't need that many things. Just basic phone. Anchor FM was something I tried myself. Then they have all those different music bites. When you listen to a professional podcast, you hear like, did some music starts, and then they've got this intro, outro, all those fancy terms. It's just the basic introduction, and it's much easier to record it on Anchor FM. So here, it just still starts with the question, why? Who is your audience? How often you want to do it? And just to commit to it. And then the technical part of it. For the technical part, if it's a professional studio, you need it for your company, that's one thing. When you need it just for yourself to promote your business, your product, to maybe increase your brand recognition or increase your visibility, or maybe just through the podcast, get people to know you more as a business owner about your values, about your kind of thinking and what's coming. So that's kind of way of introducing you to a larger audience.
Yes, you got it. In fact, to me right now, the easiest one to start is Anchor FM. Mm-hmm. And in the class, I recommend people just get going, even if you do a personal one and learn from it, but it's not the major one you're going to do. Get something out, start working with it. Anchor FM will let someone do it on their phone.
Yeah.
That you can edit it on Anchor FM. It's not that it's super easy. Everything to me is easier on a desktop, but it can be done. So you can literally only own a smartphone, get in a quiet place, and record your first podcast. And you can either use some of their tools for it, like you said, some of the audio they offer. The other question is, do you want to monetize it? Do you want to make money on it? And then thinking through the show. And one of the things that I think so important is, imagine you're talking to someone specifically, because a lot of people haven't had the chance to get professional training in speaking. And don't worry about that. Just be connected in your mind to somebody and your language will be clear. Because if you're not, then we get more of the I think I ought, because you're not talking to a human being. I want to introduce one of my favorite microphones. If you want to go to a microphone, is this. There are several levels of this, but this one has been around for a while. It's less than $100, and it lets you have what's called USB or XLR. So if you ever get your studio set up where you want two of them and you want to do interviews with people, you're still on. Then I want to talk about one you see a lot, but I don't recommend for most people, and that's this guy. This is the Blue Yeti, and the challenge with this is it assumes you're in a studio. Now, I'll use this in a classroom when I'm doing a simulcast with training as well, because I want to pick up the students in the room. I want to get all the noise. So that's the beginning piece of the next level. First, your smartphone. Then the next one is a USB microphone, and be cautious of ones. The thing I want to add with this one is this is designed to be like a flashlight. You want it pointed at your mouth, and it's designed to reject what's behind it. This is designed to pick up the highest quality sounds in a very quiet room, like singing or something. So those are the beginning piece. In fact, I think you use one like this, don't you?
Yes, it's on my desk right now. It's one of my favorite, and I first got it.
Yay.
And then I tried it, and you mentioned this USB or XLR. To me initially, because I'm not too much technical person, right? I was also learning this on my own and just sort of checking and looking. But then indeed, when you have something like a Zoom recorder, or if you have let's say on stage, so that helps. It's just that set of round cables with several dots in it that you can plug into, let's say, another device that can help you with the sound. But yeah, that's the best one. And indeed, the price is about $60 to $65 on Amazon. And Yeti comes starting from $100 and more. Yeti has several different modes. You can set up as if you're just the only one talking, or you are with someone talking, or you need to record the entire. So yes, it has, you see, like 1, 2, 3, 4 different modes.
So if you're listening, it has on the back several modes, so it can do 360, or you can adjust the gain. But again, most of the time, that's not what we need, Yeah.
And another microphone, and I saw it also recently. We had a podcast recording, and the host had this microphone. I liked it I like the purple stuff, right? And it's called V-Fine. They've got different colors for the volume. It's a little cardio mic. I think the price was something $40 to $45, and it's really good. It doesn't have that the round cable. It's just the USB one, but it's good. It has all you need, just the volume. It doesn't have any other features. All this, okay. You need to, because even with Blue Yeti, if you are recording, let's say by yourself, and you have a guest in the studio, you need to remember to click it back so that it doesn't pick up. And I remember the experience. We've got this beautiful mic. It's great when there is one person in the room. And then when doing the post-production, I was editing and I'm like, what's that noise? Like, zzz. And that was just a fan from the ceiling, and we couldn't eliminate this. So another thing, it's about the sound. You mentioned, yes, you can use your phone for Anchor FM. The beauty of it, it gets you to Spotify, it gets you to Apple Podcasts, and you don't need to pay anything for that. And some people were suggesting, I was thinking, oh gosh, with all this buzzing from different devices we have, we don't hear them, we got used to them, but the mic picks it up and that affects the sound. And then somebody suggested, you can just, as in old days, people used pillows to put on the different walls, or you hide in the wardrobe where you've got lots of clothes, or you find the room that has most of the furniture and you record it there, because then the sound would not reflect from the walls. It will be in that confined area, just you and the mic.
Yeah, and you brought up an important point. Part of doing recordings is train your ears to hear what's actually there. It's just like in art. I would learn from artists that the beginning of being able to draw and do art is see the world more literally and realize your perception distorts it. So that's an example of that is start listening for what is the background noise in the room. What's going on? Is there a fan? Can you turn it off? Can you find a place that's quieter? Because our mind automatically deletes that. So we've got the beginning of the recording. You can either use a mic or use your phone, and then you want to record onto something. Now, you can directly record into Anchor FM, like on your phone, but there's also a product that's very popular on the market I want to talk about, which is Audacity. And that's to me, one of the leaders in the field. And for the people seeing it visually, I'll show the layout. And why I like this is open source, it's free. Now, is it immediately easy? All of these, when you add anything else, there's a learning curve. So be understanding, maybe find a friend. In the course, we have a community to talk about it, but this is the next thing, because since it's open source and free, there are a few more things you have to download to make it into an MP3. But what it does is it lets us do a recording and be able to record it on an editor that doesn't cost us anything. So that's the piece as the next level, is getting that recording done. And then there are more fancy editors as well, but Anchor FM has its own built-in editor, and that's something else you may choose to use. So the next thing is we got to record it. We have to get it either uploaded to a location or record it directly in, like Anchor on the phone, and then we may want to trim some things around it. So learning that and getting that done right. And that's something you've done for people, where you produce the shows. Isn't that right?
Yeah. And also I was looking into, okay, so yeah, you've got the microphone, you've got everything, then you record it. And it could be, let's say, Band Garage, right? Or GarageBand on this Mac computer, or Audacity. And I tried Audacity, and to me it was overwhelming a little bit. They've got these great manuals. There's plenty of information. You start reading through this small font. It's not very customer friendly. You got used to see manuals with photos, with some of the examples. You just need to dedicate time for learning. You say, okay, I'm going to spend 2 hours right now. I'm going to read through this manual, understand all those little buttons that they have. What is this, like ripple? What is the cut? And there are some terms that people use in this production. And these terms are not necessarily the same that people think when they think of this term in a regular life. So Audacity was one, but then since we were doing, I'm producer for the National Association for Community College Entrepreneurship, Making Our Way Forward, I suggested DaVinci Resolve, which is a program for editing both audio and video. And they've got already built-in module for audio editing. And that is, to me, that gives me more options than Audacity. And yes, it got some time. There was some learning curve to learn it, but then DaVinci Resolve helps me do, let's say, one editing of the podcast, both for audio and for video. And then I render this or burn it or export it in simple terms, either into audio file, let's say WF, like WAV file or MP4 file, or into MP3 file, into the video file. In any event, yes, Audacity is helpful. You just need to put the time in your calendar and be ready to learn.
Yeah. DaVinci Resolve is a really powerful tool. And it's another one that is, again, it's what you commit the time to learn. Now, DaVinci Resolve's nice because you're learning it both for audio and for video at the same time.
Yes, that's the program. And they've got studio version, which is a paid version. And but then they've got this public beta version. They keep updating this. And that just, when you open any program, initially you see so many different buttons, but it comes to just some quick kind of checkup. You don't need to use everything. And yes, as I mentioned, like you just need to get some patience because there is always a learning curve in anything new. It's the errors and trials. Sometimes you do it and then you're happy, and then you click one button, applying some effect, thinking that you are removing noise, and then it changes the voices of other people. So that's another thing. As a producer, eventually you develop this ear for the sound that some people might not pick up, but you already hear like, okay, there was this click, there was this like, people do this a lot, and this sound, I'm like, how can I teach people not to say it? Because it's the
Right.
it shows like on the curve and you need to cut it. Now I see it visually. So I'm like, okay, cut.
Right.
Yeah.
We talked about the microphone, we talked about recording, and then the next concept is we've got to get it up to a hosting service. And that's why Anchor FM is so nice, because it offers that. It also offers the distribution, which is fantastic. But these are all components of creating a podcast. And from there, you can decide if you want editing. Do you want to have something at the beginning and something at the end? And I do want to add one more thing with the recording. Generally, it's going to be saved into a file format called MP3. That's a compressed file format. And most systems work off of that because it's a little more compressed, but still keeps most of the audio quality. And MP4 is often a video form, or is a video format as well. So let's take them through the process. We've got the recording. Let's talk about, do they want to intro and exit on their podcast as well?
Yeah. So in this podcast, they call it intro and outro, which is just the introduction. Hey, welcome to this such and such podcast. I'm this host. Today we're talking with such and such guest. Or it could be something you repeat. It should not be more than, let's say, 30 seconds or something, but it helps the listener to sort of tune into you. Because imagine the person is going through different things in the day. Oh, I just picked up my child from school. I just got a dog for a walk. And then it just starts, okay, now I'm this podcast. So you tune in into the sound of it. It's a familiar music, maybe the voice, and then you go into this podcast. And then the end, it's always nice to have that ending, or it's called outro, when you just say where to find you, maybe what's coming in your next episode. If you've got any promotions or special announcements, that's a great place to put it at the end. And you mentioned also earlier about monetizing. Monetizing comes later when you've got your audience. When you start thinking about podcast as the immediately for monetize it, I mean, it takes some time. So just to avoid any frustrations, just keep doing this for fun, for purpose, intentionally, consistently, and then monetizing comes at that point. And actually, what's good about Anchor FM, they offer their own monetizing. If you do a soundbite about them, hey, I'm doing this on Anchor FM. It's such a great platform. You just tap of your finger and you are there in the podcasting world. And they will give you, I think it's 10 cents or something if somebody listens to that podcast and they hear that point where you recorded that.
Yes. And one of the other angles on monetizing, if you really are building up with the plan of selling commercials on your podcast, you may want to comp in a friend so the spot's there, so the listeners are accustomed that there's an ad in it. And that's one of the lessons I learned. We had a leading social selling podcast for years that reached a global reach, and we had not really woven in the commercials until that. And then we realized, okay, because it would have been better if we started with a placeholder for it and just gave it away, from the beginning, and then said, look, my goal is to get up to, and usually it's at least 1,000 to 4,000 downloads per episode, is to give people an idea of the range where someone's going to be wanting to get you. But that's a possibility. And also you want to weave in any commercial. So you're thinking about your audience. Everything's from the perspective of the audience. How long, keeping the intro tight and short is so important because people are becoming less tolerant of
So that's another thing about the length of the podcast. I saw podcasts as long as 1 minute every day. I saw podcasts as long as 2 hours, but then let's say on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis. And just regularly you think about the person, as you mentioned. So you imagine that your audience, like who is that person? Where do they listen to my podcast? Are they driving to work? Are they driving to a grocery store? Maybe they take a dog out for a walk or some jogging. Therefore, you think, well, that takes usually 25 to 30 minutes. Let me start with that. And also for the podcast, as I mentioned, frequency is important and you need to decide it. Initially, maybe you don't need to go every day because that will be overwhelming. And plus, you might not have enough content to run through that time. So you think about maybe monthly or bi-weekly would be a good place to start it. If you see and you develop confidence and you see that you're gaining that traction, then okay, producing this on a weekly basis could be your goal. And also you talked about what happens, and there are several elements to this. As I mentioned, there is some content to play around. There is some technical side about light, video, or the microphone. And then there is this Audacity or some other program where you record it and then you edit this. But then there are two terms that people use, the podcasting platform and podcasting directories. And now I'd like to cover the point about some of the different podcasting hosting platforms. Next, the top 5, when you Google it, it shows top 5 podcast hosting platforms: Buzzsprout, Podbean, Libsyn, Simplecast, and Megaphone. And I tried several of them. I checked them out. I looked at what's the pricing, what's the offer. But also there was one really cool online tool when you can just fill in a survey and then the program at the end shows you what would be the best option for you. It wasn't related to Buzzsprout or something. It just, by nature of questions, it would lead you to what could be helpful for you. So Anchor FM, they give you already promotion and they already position you on some of the platforms they partner with, such as Spotify or Apple Podcast. But Buzzsprout, for example, they help you be on some 20 podcast directories. So that kind of expands your your range is so much more with Buzzsprout. And plus, they offer you hosting site. So you have a dedicated special website for your podcast. Then they've got lots of training and audio and video and support to come in online. And they give you 2 hours for free just to try them out. And when you decide, okay, now I'm ready, then they give you different plans, whether you want, it all depends usually if you choose a platform, how many hours of podcasting are you going to do a month? And that's the thing, okay, if you're only doing 30 minutes a month, 2 hours per month is fine to start with and just try it out. The only thing is that if you don't pay on Buzzsprout, your podcast will disappear after a certain time. They don't keep it. But if you pay for the plan, then it's there as long as the company lasts.
Yeah, excellent point. And that's another one. I have someone I know from my social media management class that's on that platform and does a great show as well. So that's terrific. Now, another component, and we're just doing a survey of the components. There's more details to this. But another component is writing the copy for it and making sure that's keyword driven and really having some copy talking about the show so they can read and decide, do they want to listen to it? Talk a little bit about getting that copy and show notes together.
So here you can rely on a transcript service. That's really helpful. And the one I'm going to suggest, that's also when I looked into different transcripting services, Otter AI came up as my number one choice. What they do, let's say you're recording an episode with someone, they automatically record it and transcribe it for you. And then they pick up some of the keywords in your copy. And that helps you later come up with a description. Some platforms require a lengthy description. Some like it really short, just a paragraph about, okay, so in this episode, tune in to listen to your host and your guest. They talk about this, or have you wondered about this? Have you ever thought about this idea? And then just some little teaser into that, and it should not be more than one paragraph, because the longer version, that's just not necessarily people will read it. Yes, it can help in your search if somebody is searching for that, but for description, one paragraph would suffice. And then for Buzzsprout, for example, when you upload your audio into that platform, when you provide some description, then you can provide your season or number of your episode or who is your guest. And then they've got tags, the so-called tags or those keywords. And this is your place where you can place all those potential words so that people can find you. And having a transcript, that's another great way of being more visible. Because yes, if people search for some information, if you have a transcript built into your podcast, or even if you do a YouTube video and you've got the transcript built in there, chances are you will be more visible and you will be higher in the search than other podcasters. Therefore, I thought transcript service came a little bit later, but it can help you not to re-listen to the entire conversation, search for keywords, have it all in one place, and then repurpose the content. You can repurpose it for a blog. You can pick up some of the quotes there. You can use some of the kind of maybe put an article, or if you have several guests talking about the same thing, just pulling out different bits and pieces. And that can minimize your time you spend on that podcast.
Yeah, that's great. And the key is what is it and how would someone be searching for that podcast? And that's what you want in the text and also having the tags. That's terrific. So we have a title, we've got a description, we've got tags in it, and now we're ready to decide, do we want to release it? And many of them will let you schedule release. Anchor even does that. So you could sit down in a session and do multiple ones and then have them release at set intervals. And I think intervals and time, how long should it be? Everything's decided on who are you speaking to, who's the audience, what's the content. When we did the sales podcast, we chose to let it be a half an hour to an hour if the content was excellent. So people would be driving. What we found is sales professionals would be driving on a 4-hour trip and they didn't want a tiny soundbite. They wanted a deep dive. They wanted to listen to it. So it's all what you're up to. Then the fun one I've done in Anchor FN, I'll put in there. My goal was to make it as simple as possible. I have no intro, no closing, other than me just saying, hello, this is Martin Brossman. Here's what's going in close, to show you can really have them simple. And it's a simple phrase. Most of them are less than a minute or two. Now, I'll probably be putting something like this on it, which will be much longer, but the average ones, real simple sound bites, grab it and move on. So all of this is, what is your goal? What are you doing with it? And I really invite people to first, if you may want to just create a personal, I like gardening one and learn about it. You got to get on the court and do something is the key.
I so much agree with you on that point, because some people compare themselves with others and checking up into the audience. And my personal goal was like, I want to be like Oprah. Oh, I love those soul conversations when she has the deep voice, the sound of it, how she asks all these people, but I'm not Oprah. But I picked up something that I liked in her podcast. Or then I listen, let's say, Dean Graziosi or Tony Robbins or Mel Robbins. These are my inspirational speakers. And I'm like, oh, Mel Robbins does that really. Indeed, she has short sentences, active voice, and then, hi, this is Mel Robbins on this podcast and podcast. Tag me here and there. I'm like, oh, that was perfect. Just short and sweet. So indeed, like you've got all that podcasters on your phone, and then you think about, do I deserve to be one? Will people listen to me? The truth is that if you have inspiration, people would feel your energy. And yes, not everybody will be your listener. You're not Oprah, you're not that person. But if you have some particular hobby that you love and you speak with it from your heart, you'll get your audience eventually. And another thing, yes, about the length. The length should be interesting and engaging enough. And if you feel that it's a long conversation, let's say 1 hour or something, just getting some little sound bites in between so that the person kind of, okay, I'm back. Because usually the attention span, I mean, we know it, like 20, 25 minutes, and then people start paying attention to some other things, right? So therefore, when I listen to Oprah, she usually has her commercial inside. But that also, that little thing should be relevant. I understand she's different now and she's earning money, but I'm listening to this soul conversation with Maya Angelou, and they talk about this experience. That's one of the last interviews of Maya Angelou. And suddenly there is this hair commercial about dyeing your hair and the shampoo. I'm like, what? So that, to me as an audience, as a listener, I was distracting. So I'm like, no, go back. Come on. I want to be back into that soul spiritual conversation. Therefore, if you have a voice or tone for your podcast, keep it the same way, because that's the way of being authentic, being unique, being your voice, and bringing your content to that podcast.
Yeah, that's excellent. So put it in, get it out. And like I love to say, good enough, get it out the door, and really get on the court, make some mistakes, learn from it. Don't be worried if somebody doesn't like something. That's the key. That's you getting tough enough that you can be in the world and someone not like something is how you become unstoppable. You don't become unstoppable being overly prepared, perfect every single time. You make mistakes, you clean them up, you move on, you learn from it. That's how you become more tough and more successful moving forward with this content. So we've covered a really great gambit of it. We've covered the idea of recording it. We've covered the overview, think about editing it. Then there's some production on it. Then it's producing it. Then it's, of course, marketing it as well, email list. And I loved what you said, repurposing it. If you transcribe, you may want to get an editor to kind of convert it, because sometimes spoken word isn't quite as enjoyable to read, but good editors can do that. You can give it to them and say, I want you to make this into a relevant blog. And that gives them something to work from, the concepts, and really create it. I'm working on a new book that basically I have the person working on the book is taking the entire transcript of the training. Of course, she's converting it into something that's more coherent. And I think that's so relevant. The next thing I want to just talk about is the process. You're doing real editing, both video and podcasting, as a professional. Talk about what you do.
Okay. And before I jump into that good enough? That's my mantra. Since I met you, I mean, that was 2 years ago in Wake Tech when you were teaching video making class. And yes, we want to make things perfect, strive for excellence, but good enough is really great. And about the audience, sometimes people say, I only have 10 subscribers to my YouTube channel, or only 10 people listen to my podcast. But then, like, imagine if these people walk into your room right now and you see them behind you. Would this matter more? For me, it will. Okay, so when it comes to the actual production of your podcast, here you need to collect some these are called assets, or these are called elements of your audio or video. And if it's you are doing both video and audio, I usually start with a video. In this case, I can separately kind of export it into audio and then have a video version. But you need to have some slide. You need to have some slide with your speaker, and then the host of the podcast, then the title, maybe add some graphics into this. So that's kind of, that stands out. Then it's the video recording, and then it's an audio track, and then maybe the introductory part of your podcast and the end. So, and then you complete it as a little puzzle, or like blocks, right? So you put, okay, my intro, my speaker and the theme, the main part of it, and the end. And even in the podcast, when you, there is some script. When you have a host for the podcast, you always start with the introduction, and you either introduce your guest, or you get your guest to introduce themselves. Generally having like 4 or 5 normal questions if it's a 30-minute thing, and then at the end, like starting something about, okay, now that we are leaving this, please let us know how to find you if this is your guest, or is there something that you would like to share with our audience? Maybe give them some advice, what helps you in life. And so that's just some other things. It helps when you have maybe some questions in the beginning. At least you know like what will be the topic of your conversation. And as a host for the podcast, you see that you don't have to go through all of the questions. If you feel that one of the discussions is so deep and it's really to the content, that you can just forego some of the other questions. But it's always good to have some ending, like in a good book, right? We all start with a good intro, the main part, the climax, the culmination, and then at the end, sort of giving you that context about what's coming next, right? Or just maybe providing some of the summary. So we talked about this, and this, and then you can find our speaker here, you can find our podcast here, and tune in again next Thursday, next Friday for more conversations on this and this topic. And for the producer, when you also need to think about space, because audio files and video files, they are heavy. And from the very beginning, it's good to understand that you need to have some backup device, maybe a USB drive, thumb drive, or special kind of external storage. Because when you edit your podcast, video could be as long as up to 1 gigabyte. Audio track is small, but when you do videos, it's a lot of assets to keep as a draft. And then when you export it, and then you think about, I need to have a backup just in case something happens and I need to reload this. So that's just another element of space and storage.
Outstanding. Well, that really gives a little window into the process. It's a real production. That's why it's okay if you want to do a podcast and hire someone a person like you to do the production, where they give the instructions, you have bullet points of talking, and then you hand it over to someone to produce it and get it done. And I think that's often what professionals really need to do what they're best at. And you brought up something I've found real important for the person doing the podcast. I like simple bullet points that you have versus a full script. The problem with an untrained news announcer is a full script sounds like you're reading a full script. You'll take the humanness out of it. Now, if you can work with a teleprompter like a news announcer, which I have amazing respect for, the more I get into this, where they can put emotional inflection into stuff they didn't even write, and then do it. That's a whole nother mental training, but bullet points are good. And another point you brought up here was the idea of, are you going to let yourself go off it if it adds to the contribution? I'm like that. I might start with several bullet points, but I'll get in the interview with the person and go, oh my gosh, this is the next discussion we need to have. And you have to decide, are you going to follow it rigidly, or are you going to let you go off? But you also want to make sure you don't go off on tangents so people are losing track of the entire topic. It could, you might want to say, that's so good, we need to make another, bring you back and do a whole show just on that. The last thing I want to mention is, as the person facilitating it, you need to manage the conversation. And that doesn't mean control it. But I remember doing a interview on a news broadcast with someone, and there was a small station, and they said, thank goodness you managed the conversation. And I didn't even know I was doing it. I just wanted it to be a great show, and I was the guest, but I didn't realize I was managing the conversation, because they were like, they didn't even know where to go next. So you do have a responsibility of managing it. And what that might mean is, that's a great point. We might want to have another show on it or something like that. So, and your job is to take care, especially if it's an interview of someone you like, you want to work with, take care of both of them. This is not, unless you're doing confrontational news interviews where you're going to set them off, take care of your guest and manage it as well.
Yeah, Martin, it comes back to that point about who you are, whether you are doing a solo thing, like maybe you're just by yourself and you speak on one point and then you derail, or it's about the guest and you don't know what that guest may bring, how your question can trigger some of the interesting ideas and maybe some of the experiences, and person can go full length with that. And that's also, it's the art of coming back. It's similar to driving a car, right? You have a route, okay, I need to go there, but suddenly there is this beautiful lake, I need to check on it, right? Check on it and then come back on the main road and keep driving, thinking of your ultimate goal, watching your time, and also thinking about the audience, how relevant it would be for them.
Another topic is music, because you've got to be careful that you've got royalty free that can be used. Sometimes you can buy what's called royalty free, but you only have rights to use it for one show. So talk a little bit about this, because that's an important piece. We had someone edit a video and then they put on YouTube, and YouTube blocked it, and they go, well, you didn't tell us you would use it on YouTube. So this is a very important aspect.
So that's always the idea, okay, where my podcast would be, on which platform. And usually if it's on those famous platforms, they also have some artificial intelligence built in to check for the music and for the rights. And that was also my key question. Okay, where can I get the music? Maybe I have a musician, somebody I know, and they can create the content just for you, and this will be yours to keep it just as a gift. So that's great. Anchor FM, they have some built-in tunes, so you can have that sound as if you're at the airport, and it's like, ta-da, like that sounds of some special announcements. And that helps because they already give you some of the music that you can use. But for the podcast, I use YouTube music library, because I know the podcast will be on YouTube, and that music is already cleared by YouTube to use. And they've got, you can search for inspirational music, for some classical music, whether even some sounds you can pull out from there. And this way, you just, let's say you have 10 different types of music that you liked, and you think about, okay, what could be my intro piece of music and what could be at the end? This could be 2 different tracks, but just having them. And YouTube library, thank you so much for that, because that's just awesome. There are some other platforms where you can download this, but some platforms require you just need to check the small font. Some say, okay, just to mention the artist is enough. And then someone says, no, it just maybe paying some little something to an artist. And you just need to be sure, like, what are the terms that they suggest. And on YouTube, it's also, there are two differences. One is a copyright claim, and another one is copyright strike. Copyright strike, you're in trouble. 3 times they block you. Copyright claim, they just say, hey, someone may have rights to this music. So it still gets your position that, but they just say this music belongs to someone. So always good idea to copy that information and maybe put in your description to the YouTube video, okay, this is the original video and this is the original artist. So this way you can sort of balance between those points.
Yeah, and there's another one called audiojungle.net, and that's a place, but again, make darn sure you read the fine print. Sometimes it could be for only one particular show and you can't reuse it or something else. In my case, I had my stepson produce something and I said, I want it to sound kind of like Mission Impossible and National Public Radio. and he actually put something together and it clears every time. But then, you know, don't hesitate to hire a musician too, or pay them, because that could it could be a friend and say, look, I'm going to underpay you this, but you can claim you were hired and work on it. So those are important aspects to think of. Another aspect I want to bring up on it is just analytics, because that's something to watch, and you want to watch the number of downloads in the show. So this is one I'm playing with where it's one cut and getting it out there. So it's something I've been under launching. And the idea was, how simple could I produce a podcast with no canned introduction or anything else, just me, one cut. And it's kind of showing you the analytics, the data, and so just know that there is stats. And one of the biggest things is where it's downloaded, what it's downloaded on, and how many downloads occur. And that's going to be important if you're getting people investing in your show, to show it, to find out what are your platforms, how are they using it. Just like our sales platform, linking into sales years ago that we did, it was completely based on listening to it on iTunes on a desktop. Very interesting. So we realized, okay, that's interesting. Who's listening to it? So you get some data, and often when you pay more, you get higher quality data.
Yeah, and Buzzsprout does the same, and it gives you, I like to see the map, but Buzzsprout, they show you the real map, and they've got the different continents, and they show you like number of downloads and the percentage. So that kind of gives you a perception like, wow, my podcast is traveling the world. That's really great. And then also it helps you in the long term when you invite someone and that's the guest of some high caliber, maybe they've got audience and they can choose, well, why would I need to be on your podcast? So they ask you questions. Who's your audience? How many downloads you have per month or per episode? Because to them, it's important to see whether it's worth their time to be on something. They just also want to have some impact. So analytics is always good to keep, and yes, analyze it, because you can think like, okay, there was some Alexa device or some TV smart that downloaded my podcast. Okay, that's great. Or Audible, that's another, it's also books, but also podcasts. So you can search for podcasts there. And Anchor FM also links your podcast from Anchor FM to Audible. So I really love that tool. So I'm glad to see that you've got it, but I didn't go into that analytical dashboard. So I'll check it out after this recording.
And see what it has. That's excellent. Well, we've covered a lot, and I'm excited to have our first conversation with you, and we'll do more on this, and then I'll have links in the area to look you up. One of the places I think is a great one is just go to your LinkedIn and see your great experience and what you've done and all the activity. I want you to have the closing comments, because this was so much fun, just to have a dialogue of something we're both passionate about, podcasting and production, and making it available to all the people that want to do it.
Some final points about the podcasting. That podcast is maybe relevant to your life as well. Not every day we wake up inspired or happy or just share something we care for. One day you think like, oh, I don't feel like doing this. And it's the thing is about you still need to do it anyway. And just giving you that momentum of, okay, not every episode would be perfect. There will be some episodes that will have maybe less downloads, less interesting. You decide later what to do with them. You can take them down, you can still keep them there, and then come back for another day and record another one. Here, it's the comparison to how you keep the fire, right? It could be bright light, but as long as you keep adding some wood to the fire, just have like that little glimpse. Okay, maybe your podcast will be, you just put a break and you just say, hey, we're skipping this episode. It's the Thanksgiving week. So everyone, happy Thanksgiving, enjoy it. And we'll come back later, come back next week. Then you can get some momentum. And it's always good to have in your pocket or your library some of those inspirational podcasters that you listen to, because sometimes you walk and you think, okay, that's a great idea. I want to record my thinking on this, or I want to bring a guest who can talk about this. So just the thing about that, yes, it's commitment from one point. It's like starting a business. It's not just like one-time thing. Once you're in it, you have to keep it going or make a decision. Okay, I tried it. It was fun. Now it's the next stage of my life. I want to do something else and have no regrets. Just close it down, say goodbye, and do something else.
Fantastic. Well, this was so much fun. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Martin. I enjoyed myself. So everyone, good luck with your podcasting. And if you have any tips or how to find it, Martin is the great source for it. Thank you so much. Bye.